Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katelyn from Florals.com and today I am back with After the Glue Dries, the current series on my channel. If you guys have not checked out previous episodes, I'll have the playlist linked down below so you guys can check it out and sort of go through the process that I'm going through of trying to complete my layouts so they can go into albums. And if you have a bad journaling habit like I do, where you don't journal on the layout for, this is where cricket noises would play, and then I say years, it can be quite a conundrum. So I've made some great progress in journaling on my layouts. I have a bunch, this is just from a small pile, so I probably journaled on 20 to 30 layouts this week alone. And then on the back of all of them, okay, not this one. Okay, these ones are the ones I haven't signed. Did I sign this one? Okay, this one's signed. So Scrap and Amy gave me the idea that she signs all of her layouts, but I decided to actually put when I journaled on them since I graduated college, which this layout was in 2017, and I journaled on it 3 years later. I think that's a pretty big difference. So I did write down when I journaled on it, and that's what I plan on doing with all of my layouts that are older and need that kind of thing. But signing your layouts can be really, really good, especially if you have multiple scrapbookers in your family, or you think your children might end up scrapbooking, or you have lots of artists in your family, so people might assume another artistic person in your family might be doing the scrapbooks later on, years to come. That way your name's on it. But today's topic is not about that, but hopefully you guys are making progress on your piles as well. I've seen lots of people posting about layouts going into albums. I just saw Heather's Crafty Life buying new page protectors so she had more places to put her completed layouts. And Victoria Marie Scraps did some weeks ago. Crafty Meggie was doing some as well. Lots of great inspiration out there for those who need to put away their layouts, organize their layouts, or journal on them, like me. So if you're in the lazy scrapbooker group, as I consider myself, you guys are in the same boat. So I was journaling on this layout when disaster struck and I smudged the crap out of one of my words. So in today's episode, I'll be sharing with you guys some different tips and tricks for how you can cover it up, fix it, make it work. And I thought that would be a great idea because sometimes when you're in a journaling mode, like I've been doing bulk journaling for quite a few weeks now, sitting down with a bunch of layouts, journaling, setting it aside, journaling. Sometimes these little things can slip by us, and it's important that we realize what's happening, and if you're in a rush to do it, it'll look like it's rushed, just as mine does. So this ended up getting smudged because I was writing quickly, my pinky finger got in the way and just snagged this word and dragged it, and it was messy. And this is with the Creative Memories fine tip pen that I shared in the journaling pens video. If you guys haven't watched that, it'll be in the playlist link down below. But I didn't think this smudged as much. It might be the paper. The paper's not glossy. However, if you're using glossy, there were some great comments on this video in particular about the journaling pens, about using different types on glossy paper. This does not work well on glossy unless you give it time to dry, because I did do some glossy pages with it. I wouldn't say it was the best choice, but I tested it. It kind of worked. So I messed it up. What do I do next? So there's lots of different options, especially depending on what your layout looks like. So this particular layout, I have I'm going to say cardstock. It's really thin paper. This is not actually cardstock, but it looks like it is. So we have a cardstock background, and everything's already glued down, obviously. So there's a few things I could do. First, white out would be perfect if I had a white background. Obviously I don't, and this color of blue would be very, very hard to match any other way, especially since I've already used this entire paper up. But if you have a paper scrap that matches your flat color, or a pattern that can be reintroduced, like a stripe could be relined up so you could cover it up, that's a great option. I don't have that option here, but it's a great option to just sort of paste on top of an exact copy of what would have been there, minus the journaling. So there will be a raised section, but since it'd be your journaling section anyway, it just gives it prominence. It doesn't look bad, it just looks different because it is supposed to be where the journaling goes. So that would be the first option. And then rejournal over it. Maybe practice your journaling, maybe use a different pen, depending on what exactly went messed up. Was it a misspelled word? Was it you couldn't fit what you wanted to write, so you have to respace it? Or was it a smear, like mine was? Another option is mixed media. So a lot of people do mixed media layouts nowadays and then journal directly on the background. So say you have this beautiful watercolor background, or you used a stencil, or you did gesso or X, Y, and Z, maybe you could just add more mixed media on top of it to cover it up. So if I had opaque white paint, maybe I could do some brush strokes on each side of this to essentially cover it up, but it looks like it's part of the layout. So that would involve a lot of planning and like lifting up edges to make sure the mixed media goes under it. Then there's drying. Then I'd have to effectively move my journaling, because in that case, paint's not a flat item. It will have texture and be really hard to journal on. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons of the different options and what will work for your particular layout. But there's also easier options. So mixed media, lining up papers might work. Sometimes they're easier than others. It really depends on your style and your experience. But really, the goal is to cover it up. My favorite way to do that is with labels. And labels come in stickers, cut-aparts, ephemera. They come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. I have some labels here. I'm hoping I have one or two that I can mishmash together to cover this up and then rewrite on, so I can actually finish my journaling here. And I want to make sure it's integrated into the layout. So you guys might remember this process video on my channel, but I did this a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, in one of my How to Kill a Kit with Styles. So stickers, I wish I had more of these freckled fawn labels, but I do not. So I'm going to have to just pick a different one. Luckily, there's a lot of colors on this layout, so it won't be too hard to find a fix. But there's also the idea of just making a new cluster. So I could find more of this Pink Fresh Studio stuff I used, or the Heidi Swap stuff I used, and essentially just fill up this cluster and then move my journaling somewhere else. Sometimes it's just about adjusting the layout so you can get what you need done, which is cover this up, and not necessarily just cover it up with more journaling. So that's an option. So I could, introduce a doily to help cover it up. I could add ephemera. There's lots of different ways. You got to be creative, but covering it up can sometimes be the best option, especially if it's a larger section. Labels only come so big. I don't even know if one of these might be the right fit. I'm hoping it is. It looks like it'll be just too small or just big enough. But either way, sometimes you won't have an exact fit. So you could either make your own labels with some cardstock and some white. So essentially just layering those two up so it looks like a label, pile it on top, or you could just use a sticker, ephemera, create another cluster on top. It really depends on what you want and what you think will look best. Luckily, you don't have to glue it down right away, and you can simply just wing it and test it out and see how it looks. Write your journaling on it beforehand, because if you mess it up, you don't want it to be pasted onto the layout already. Obviously, we want to kind of avoid that kind of scenario where you put it down and you mess up the journaling again. So if you're in that boat, maybe typed journaling is the best option for you. So essentially, you would either pick out a pattern cardstock, a regular cardstock, white printer paper, a little bit heavier probably, print out, paste on top. It'd make it easier. You would be able to actually say what you want to in that specified size. So just take a ruler to where you want to put it, see if it's 1 inch by 2 inch, mark that out in a text box on your printer, and that's what you'd fill in. So you can make a digital label, print it out with your journaling in it, and there you go. So lots of different options. Today I'm going to pick out a label that'll work. If you guys have more ideas, please leave them down below, because I know this happens to me all the time, and there's tons of different ways to edit your layouts to fix what you've done wrong. So really I could just cover up like this last line and then this section, just edit the exact part I messed up. That'd be a little bit harder in this case, but say you just messed up the last word, you could add a strip of washi tape, then start a new line with the last few words of your journaling. Lots and lots of different options, but hopefully one of those will work for you. Now I'm going to go through these labels. So I think these LE Studio ones are the best fit in terms of the exact size I need, and I've been meaning to use more of these labels since I bought them. And it doesn't look like I have an exact color match for this teal in this heart set, which I was kind of leaning towards. I also have these really big ones. So are these ones long enough? Okay. I think I might go for the darker teal, although this one's a good match. So both of these teal colors are in my color palette thanks to this Pink Fresh Studio paper over here. I have the light teal and I have the dark teal. Now, neither of these match my background paper. They do look very close though, but I think I'd go with the darker teal just for the extra contrast. So I'm going to trim that out, and I'm nervous it's going to be too small, but we'll figure out a way to make it look intentional and not just covering it up. because that's the important part. Is oftentimes when we add things to layouts, it looks like you added something on. Similarly, when someone photoshops something into a picture and then shows it to someone who's never seen the picture before, they wouldn't notice the change, but anybody who's seen the picture several times before would notice the change. So if you guys remember this layout, you might now realize how big of a change this will be, but for someone who hasn't seen it yet, so if I sent this to my friend who's in the photo with me, she would think it looks great before and after. She wouldn't even realize anything was added. So that's the fun part about this, is that it's really just your little secret and you don't have to tell anyone. I really need to replace the blade on my trimmer because it's giving me fuzzy edges. Here's the moment of truth. Does it fit? It is an exact fit. Now I have this washi tape leatherish sticker. No, this is actually cardstock. I don't know if I'd be able to peel this up enough. This is just a test to see if I could tuck it in enough to get it to overlap. Okay, so I can tuck it under there so it overlaps. That'll make it seem intentional. If it's underneath something else, automatic intentions already added. So I can do that, but then there's this awkward space. So my intention was to fill up this entire space. So if I wanted to do that, I could do 2 labels stacked on top of each other, you know, like add another one so I can write a ton more. Let's see what that would look like. I'm going to trim this one off too, because sometimes you just really want to go through all the options before you make a decision, because it's not a huge decision. Obviously we've made bigger decisions, you know, cutting our photos in half, you know, there's scary decisions we can make in scrapbooking. But this one's going to be still a different type of decision, and I could tuck that one under there. So this one would be on top of the washi tape, or I could try to keep going. And then this one could tuck under too. Let's see. And I would offset them a little bit like that. See, now that takes up all of the space and covers, nope, I have to maneuver this one a little bit more. There we go. Got to be really intentional with where it'll actually cover up the text, because I want to make sure that's all covered before I glue anything down. So that could be, I'll just put that washi tape sticker back down just so you guys can see the difference, but essentially that would be the difference in this layout. So you can kind of see there, it adds a lot more weight to this side of the layout, or this cluster of the layout, and it doesn't look off. Again, the colors match, that's fine. Even a white text block with black text on top of it printed off your computer would look fine, especially if you tried to match the fonts on your layout. That's another tip you can do. Try to match something that's already on. I have like 8,000 fonts on this layout, but there's this reoccurring typewriter style font that could work really, really well in a journaling section like this. But again, knowing what you have to cover up, knowing the size, and knowing what you want to cover it up with is a great start in the right direction for fixing it. So now that I have that in place, I'll add my journaling on top outside the layout, then bring it back to my layout and glue it into place. But that's how I would tackle a journaling mishap. Let me know your ideas down below. I know it really depends on the circumstance, but if you guys have ever messed up journaling, you know how embarrassed you feel. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, because it's like you worked so hard on this masterpiece, this canvas, and everything was perfectly in its place, and then you messed up the one final touch of journaling. And sometimes it's not too big of a mess up, so you don't have to devote this much time to figuring out an option, but be careful when you're journaling and figure out what you want before you start maybe. I know I've talked about this before, but pre-planning what you're going to say is a lot easier than misspelling something once it's on the layout. Really depends on your style though. A lot of people are easygoing, so they'll just cross it out, add some washi tape over it, whatever it might be for your solution. But I hope you enjoyed this solution today. I'm going to go add this journaling, and then it'll be ready to go into an album. But thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of After the Glue Dries. Let me know what you think of this episode. I believe the next episode is talking about journaling on dark backgrounds, so stay tuned for that one next week. And keep going, keep journaling on your layouts. Getting through those stacks can be hard. I know I still have several stacks to go through, especially adding dates. Maybe I'll do an episode about that too, where, you know, the struggle of going through the digital system to match up with the printed system can be a bit annoying, but I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, I'll have some additional educational resources for the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the other movements happening in the world right now. There's a lot going on, but there's still a lot we can do. So if you guys are interested, you can check those out down below. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!